What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected humanitarian activists sits down for what should be a routine interview, only to face an unexpected ambush that exposes the ugly side of daytime television? What you're about to witness is a masterclass in grace under pressure, as Angelina Jolie finds herself defending not just her career, but her character against a host determined to tear her down on live television. This isn't your typical celebrity interview. This is a battle of wits that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about media integrity. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story gets more intense with every passing minute. The atmosphere in the View studio felt different that Tuesday morning. The usual pre-show chatter among the hosts seemed more hushed, more conspiratorial than usual. Joy Behar sat at the iconic table, shuffling through her notes with an expression that suggested she had something brewing, something she'd been waiting to unleash. Ladies, we have Academy Award winner Angelina Jolie joining us today to discuss her latest directorial project and her ongoing humanitarian work, announced the producer through their earpieces. She'll be out in 5 minutes. Whoopi Goldberg glanced over at Joy, noticing her co-host's unusually rigid posture. "You okay over there, Joy? You seem a little tense." Joy looked up from her notes, a tight smile crossing her face. "Oh, I'm perfectly fine, Whoopi. Just prepared, that's all. Very prepared." The other hosts exchanged glances. They'd seen that look before, and it usually meant trouble. As the show's theme music began to play, the hosts took their positions, the cameras rolled, and Whoopi delivered the standard introduction with her characteristic warmth. Please welcome our next guest, Academy Award-winning actress and director, Angelina Jolie. The audience erupted in applause as Angelina walked onto the set, elegant as always in a tailored black blazer and crisp white shirt. She moved with her trademark poise, offering genuine smiles to each host as she took her seat. "Angelina, thank you so much for being here," Whoopi said warmly. "We're thrilled to have you." "Thank you for having me," Angelina replied, her voice calm and measured. "It's always a pleasure to be here." The interview began smoothly enough. Sarah Haynes asked about Angelina's latest film, and she responded with thoughtful insights about the creative process. Sunny Hostin inquired about her humanitarian work, and Angelina spoke passionately about her recent trip to refugee camps in Jordan. But Joy sat silently, watching, waiting. Her moment was coming. "You know, Angelina," Joy finally interjected, her voice carrying a sharp edge that cut through the comfortable conversation. "I have to ask about something that's been bothering me for quite some time." The studio seemed to hold its breath. Angelina turned toward Joy, her expression remaining composed but alert. "Of course, Joy. What would you like to know?" Joy leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. "Well, it's interesting how you've positioned yourself as this great humanitarian, traveling the world, adopting children from various countries. But I have to wonder, isn't there something a little, I don't know, colonial about all of this?" The question hit the studio like a thunderbolt. The other hosts visibly stiffened, and Angelina's eyebrows raised slightly, though she maintained her composure. "I'm sorry, could you clarify what you mean by colonial?" Angelina asked, her voice still steady but with a hint of steel beneath the surface. Joy's smile grew more pronounced, clearly pleased with the reaction she'd provoked. "Well, here you are. This wealthy white woman from Hollywood, swooping into these developing countries, taking children, making movies about their struggles. It all seems very, how should I put this, white savior complex to me." The silence in the studio was deafening. Even the audience seemed stunned into quiet. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly not expecting this turn. Angelina took a deep breath, her hands folded calmly in her lap. "Joy, I understand that my work might be viewed through different lenses, and I welcome thoughtful discussion about the complexities of humanitarian aid. However, I think you're mischaracterizing both my intentions and my approach." "Am I, though?" Joy pressed, her voice growing more aggressive. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've built an entire second career off the backs of other people's suffering. And don't even get me started on how you've used your adoptions as publicity opportunities." The other hosts looked mortified. Sarah Haynes attempted to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should—" "No, Sarah, let me finish." Joy snapped, not taking her eyes off Angelina. "I think the audience deserves to hear this. We're always talking about privilege and accountability on this show, aren't we? Well, Here's a perfect example sitting right in front of us. Angelina's calm never wavered, but there was fire in her eyes now. Joy, I've spent nearly 2 decades working with the United Nations and various humanitarian organizations. I've dedicated significant portions of my time and resources to causes I believe in deeply. If you want to have a substantive conversation about the complexities of international aid work, I'm more than happy to engage in that. Oh, how noble, Joy said with obvious sarcasm. But let's be real here, Angelina. How much of this is actually about helping people, and how much is about making yourself feel better about your privileged life? Because it seems awfully convenient that your humanitarian work always comes with photographers and press coverage. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Whoopi finally found her voice. Joy, I think. Actually, Whoopi, let me address this directly, Angelina said, her voice remaining remarkably controlled, despite the obvious provocation. Joy, you're entitled to your opinions, but you're not entitled to misrepresent facts. The vast majority of my humanitarian work happens without cameras, without press, without fanfare. The trips that do receive coverage are specifically designed to bring attention to crises that the media often ignores. Joy leaned back in her chair, a smug expression spreading across her face. So you admit you use these tragedies for publicity? I admit that I use my platform to shine light on humanitarian crises. Yes, Angelina replied firmly. If that bothers you, then perhaps you should examine why drawing attention to human suffering makes you uncomfortable. The comeback was delivered with surgical precision, and Joy's expression flickered for just a moment before hardening again. Don't try to turn this around on me, Joy shot back. I'm not the one parading around the world with cameras in tow, collecting children like accessories. A gasp went through the studio audience. Even Joy's fellow hosts looked shocked at the harsh characterization. Angelina's composure finally showed a crack, her jaw tightening slightly. Joy, that comment is not only offensive to me, it's offensive to my children, who are sitting at home watching their mother being attacked on national television. Well, maybe they should see who their mother really is, Joy responded without missing a beat. Maybe they should understand that they were adopted as part of a publicity strategy. The words hung in the air like poison. For the first time since the interview began, Angelina's mask of composure slipped completely. Her eyes flashed with a combination of hurt and fury that made the entire studio hold its breath. Excuse me? Angelina's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but it carried more menace than if she had shouted. Did you just suggest that I adopted my children for publicity? Joy, seemingly emboldened by having finally gotten under Angelina's skin, doubled down. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Angelina. The timing was awfully convenient, wasn't it? Career struggling after the whole Brad Pitt situation, and suddenly you're Saint Angelina again, the woman who saves orphans. Joy, that's enough, Whoopi said firmly, trying to regain control of her show. We need to... No, Whoopi, Angelina said, raising her hand but never taking her eyes off Joy. Let her finish. I want to hear exactly what Joy Behar thinks about my family. Joy leaned forward, clearly enjoying having the spotlight. Look, I'm not saying you don't love those kids now, but let's be honest about how this all started. You were the other woman who broke up America's sweethearts, and you needed a way to rehabilitate your image. What better way than to become Mother Teresa? The silence that followed was deafening. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Angelina stood up slowly, her movement deliberate and controlled. Joy, I've sat here and listened to you attack my work, my motivations, and my character. I've remained respectful because I understand that controversy drives ratings, and ratings drive paychecks. But the moment you bring my children into this, the moment you suggest that they were anything other than wanted and loved, you've crossed a line that I will not tolerate. Oh, please, Joy scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. Don't give me the righteous mother act. Everyone knows what, Joy? Angelina's voice was ice cold now. That I've provided loving homes for children who needed them? That I've dedicated my life to causes greater than myself? Or are you referring to the tabloid narratives that you seem to have confused with journalism? Joy's face reddened slightly, but she pressed on. I'm talking about the facts, Angelina. The convenient timing, The carefully orchestrated photo ops. The way you've monetized your supposed altruism. Monetized? Angelina repeated, her voice rising for the first time. Joy. I've donated millions of my own money to humanitarian causes. I've taken a salary of exactly $1 for my work with the UN. But please, tell me more about how I've monetized helping refugees. The audience began to murmur, clearly sensing that Joy was losing ground. But Joy, perhaps sensing the same thing, decided to go for the jugular. You know what I think, Angelina? I think you're a narcissist who's convinced herself that her ego trips are actually noble causes. I think you collect countries and causes and children like trophies, and I think it's time someone called you out on it. The studio erupted. Several audience members could be heard gasping or expressing shock. Sunny Hostin's mouth fell open. Sarah Haynes actually covered her face with her hands. But Angelina didn't explode. Instead, something remarkable happened. She smiled. But it wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed exactly the ammunition they needed. Joy, she said quietly, retaking her seat with deliberate calm. I want to thank you for this conversation. You've just demonstrated something quite beautifully. Joy frowned, clearly not expecting this response. What are you talking about? You've just shown everyone watching exactly what's wrong with modern media, Angelina continued, her voice gaining strength. You've taken a platform that could be used to discuss important issues, real problems that affect real people, and you've turned it into a personal attack session based on tabloid gossip and your own apparent need for attention. Joy's confident expression began to falter. I'm asking legitimate questions that... No, Joy, you're not, Angelina interrupted firmly. You're making accusations without evidence, attacking a guest on your show, and using children as weapons in your verbal assault. There's nothing legitimate about any of this. The tide was turning, and everyone in the studio could feel it. Whoopi tried once more to intervene. Ladies, perhaps we should... Actually, Whoopi, I'd like to address something Joy said, Angelina continued, completely in control now. She mentioned my work being a publicity strategy. Joy, when was the last time you left this studio to actually help someone? When was the last time you used your platform for something other than gossip and petty attacks? Joy's face was now noticeably flushed. That's different. I'm a comedian and a talk show host. Exactly, Angelina said with devastating simplicity. You're a talk show host. Your job is to facilitate interesting conversation, not to ambush guests with personal attacks. Yet here you are, using your position to bully someone while hiding behind the pretense of journalism. I am not bullying anyone, Joy protested, but her voice lacked its earlier confidence. Really? Angelina's eyebrows raised. You've suggested that my children were adopted for publicity, that my humanitarian work is fake, that my motivations are entirely selfish, and that I'm a narcissist. If this isn't bullying, Joy, then what would you call it? The audience was now clearly on Angelina's side. Several people could be heard murmuring agreement with her points. Joy, realizing she was losing the room, tried to regain the offensive. Look, Angelina, if you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Tough questions? Angelina repeated incredulously. Joy, a tough question would be asking about the challenges of international adoption, or the complexities of humanitarian aid, or the difficulties of balancing career and family. What you've done is launch personal attacks based on assumptions and gossip. They're not assumptions, Joy insisted weakly. Aren't they? Angelina leaned forward slightly. You've accused me of adopting children for publicity. Do you have any evidence for that claim? Any documentation? Any source other than your own prejudices? Joy opened her mouth, but no words came out immediately. She looked around the table for support, but found none. Even her usual allies were staring at their notes or looking away. I thought so, Angelina continued. You've accused me of monetizing humanitarian work. Again, do you have financial records? Proof of personal profit? Anything concrete to support this accusation? Again, Joy had no response ready. Joy, Angelina said, her voice now carrying a tone of disappointment rather than anger. You've just spent 10 minutes attacking a guest on your show based on nothing more than your personal feelings and tabloid speculation. Is this really the kind of journalism you want to be remembered for? The question hung in the air, and Joy's discomfort was visible to everyone watching. She shifted in her seat, her earlier bravado completely evaporated. Furthermore, Angelina continued, you've done all of this while cameras are rolling, while my children might be watching, while an audience of millions gets to witness you using your platform to tear someone down rather than build anything up. Is this really what you want your legacy to be? Joy sat in stunned silence for a moment, the weight of Angelina's words settling over the studio like a heavy blanket. The audience was completely quiet, hanging on every word. Even the production crew behind the cameras seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut to commercial. But Joy Behar wasn't someone who backed down easily, even when cornered. Her face hardened, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a desperate edge. You know what, Angelina? You can sit there with your holier-than-thou attitude all you want, but I know who you really are. Everyone in Hollywood knows who you really are. Whoopi's eyes widened in alarm. Joy, don't. No, Whoopi, I'm done pretending, Joy snapped, turning back to Angelina with renewed venom. You want to talk about my legacy? Let's talk about yours. Let's talk about how you seduced a married man away from his wife and children. Let's talk about how you destroyed Jennifer Aniston's marriage. A collective gasp went through the studio. This was no longer a professional interview or even a heated debate. This was character assassination on live television. Angelina's expression didn't change, but her voice dropped to a dangerously quiet level. Joy, you need to stop talking. Right now. Why? Because the truth hurts? Joy was spiraling now, her professional composure completely abandoned. You've spent years rewriting history, playing the victim, the humanitarian saint. But you're nothing more than a home wrecker who got good at public relations. Joy, Whoopi shouted, finally standing up from her chair. That is enough. We're cutting to commercial. But Joy wasn't finished. She turned toward the camera, addressing the audience directly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what privilege looks like. This is what happens when someone with money and power doesn't like being called out for their actions. Angelina stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had faced down warlords and world leaders. Joy, in the past 20 minutes, you've accused me of exploiting children, faking humanitarian work, and destroying marriages. You've done this without evidence, without professionalism, and without any apparent concern for the consequences of your words. The consequences? Joy laughed bitterly. What are you going to do, sue me? Have your lawyers shut me up? No, Joy, Angelina replied calmly. I'm going to let you destroy yourself, which is exactly what you're doing right now. Joy's face contorted with rage. She was no longer thinking clearly, no longer calculating the impact of her words. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? You think your money and your UN title make you untouchable? I think, Angelina said quietly, that I'm speaking with someone who has lost all sense of professional boundaries and basic human decency. Basic human decency? Joy shrieked, her voice rising to a near scream. You destroyed a family, you stole another woman's husband, and then had the audacity to parade around like some kind of saint. The studio was in chaos now. Audience members were murmuring loudly, some standing up to get a better view of the confrontation. Production assistants were frantically trying to signal the director. Whoopi was repeatedly calling for commercial break. But Angelina remained perfectly calm in the eye of the storm. Joy, I've sat here and listened to you make accusation after accusation. I've watched you abandon any pretense of professionalism. I've seen you use this platform to launch personal attacks, and now I'm watching you have what appears to be a complete breakdown on live television. I am not having a breakdown, Joy shouted, proving Angelina's point perfectly. Look around you, Joy, Angelina said gently. Look at your colleagues. Look at your audience. Look at what you've turned this show into. For the first time since her tirade began, Joy seemed to register the horrified expressions of her co-hosts. Sarah Haynes looked mortified. Sunny Hostin was shaking her head in disbelief. Even some audience members were getting up to leave. But instead of backing down, Joy doubled down one final time. You know what? I don't care. Someone needed to say this. Someone needed to call you out for the fraud you are. The fraud I am? Angelina repeated slowly. Joy, in the time you've been attacking me, children in refugee camps have gone without meals. Women fleeing violence have been denied shelter. People who could have been helped by the awareness this platform could have generated have suffered. And all because you decided that your personal vendetta was more important than using this opportunity responsibly. The words hit like physical blows. Joy's mouth opened and closed without sound, finally understanding the magnitude of what she had done. Angelina picked up her purse and stood to leave. Joy, I hope that when you watch this back, you'll understand what you've revealed about yourself today. It wasn't my character that was exposed in this interview. Where do you think you're going? Joy demanded, her voice cracking slightly. I'm leaving, Angelina replied simply. I came here to discuss important work and meaningful causes. Instead, I've been subjected to a personal attack that has no place on any professional platform. You can't just walk out, Joy protested desperately. Actually, I can, Angelina said, turning to face Joy one last time. And I am. Because unlike you, I know when a conversation has become destructive rather than constructive. Joy jumped up from her chair, pointing an accusatory finger at Angelina. Don't you dare walk away from me. I'm not finished. Yes, Joy, came a new voice from off-camera. You are finished. Everyone turned to see the show's executive producer striding onto the set, his face grim. Behind him were two security guards. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing technical difficulties, Whoopi announced quickly. We'll be right back after these messages. But the cameras kept rolling as chaos erupted on the set. What is this? Joy demanded, looking between the producer and the security guards. Joy, you need to come with us, the producer said firmly. We need to talk. Now. I'm in the middle of an interview, Joy protested. No, Joy, you're in the middle of a meltdown, the producer replied. And it ends now. Angelina watched the scene unfold with a mixture of sadness and resolve. She approached Whoopi, who looked absolutely devastated. Whoopi, I'm sorry this happened to your show, Angelina said quietly. Angelina, I am so sorry, Whoopi replied, her voice heavy with emotion. This is not what The View represents. This is not who we are. I know, Angelina replied graciously. Don't let this reflect on you or the show. Everyone can see that this was one person's choices, not a reflection of your values. Meanwhile, Joy was still arguing with the producer. You can't do this to me. I've been on this show for years. I have a contract. Joy, your contract doesn't give you the right to ambush guests with personal attacks, the producer replied firmly. You've created a hostile work environment, damaged the show's reputation, and potentially opened us up to legal liability. Legal liability? Joy's voice rose again. For what? For allowing defamatory statements to be broadcast on national television, the producer explained. You've made serious accusations without evidence. That's the definition of defamation. The color drained from Joy's face as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Security will escort you to your dressing room to collect your things, the producer continued. We'll discuss your future with the show tomorrow, but for today, you're done. You can't kick me off my own show, Joy screamed, but her voice was becoming increasingly desperate. Actually, we can, the producer replied calmly. And we are. As security moved to escort Joy from the set, she made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. She turned to Angelina with pleading eyes. Angelina, you know I didn't mean. I was just trying to ask tough questions. I was just doing my job. Angelina looked at her with something that might have been pity. Joy, your job was to interview me about my work. Instead, you chose to attack my family and my character. Those weren't tough questions. They were personal vendettas disguised as journalism. Please, Joy begged, don't let them do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Joy, Angelina replied sadly. You did this to yourself. And with that, security gently but firmly guided Joy Behar off the set of The View, her voice echoing through the studio as she continued to protest her treatment. The remaining hosts sat in stunned silence as the dust settled. Angelina gathered her things and prepared to leave. Angelina, Sunny Hostin called out. I hope you know that what just happened doesn't represent how we feel about you or your work. I know, Angelina replied with a sad smile. And I hope your viewers understand that this is exactly why we need more thoughtful, responsible media coverage of important issues. As Angelina walked off the set with dignity intact, the studio remained in shocked silence. The View had just witnessed one of the most dramatic and destructive episodes in its history, all because one host had chosen personal animosity over professional responsibility. What started as a routine interview had become a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral when ego overtakes ethics, and how grace under pressure can triumph over manufactured outrage. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one, and comment below with your thoughts on whether Joy Behar crossed the line or if she was just asking the tough questions that needed to be asked.